Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms policy, politics, culture, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share this program, whether you're watching us on Facebook or you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast via Apple iTunes, or if you're listening to us on Spotify or Google Podcasts, however you're listening to us, please make sure, share it with your friends, because you know they're going to want to be a part of this conversation. Also, please take a moment and go to fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. It is the place to go to buy Christmas gifts for your 2A supporting friends. You can go there and you can find coffee mugs. You'll find T-shirts. You will find hoodies, all supporting the Second Amendment. So if you want to go there and get it for yourself, do it, because here's the thing. You know that every dollar that you spend there is going to go right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. So you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's fpcgear.com. Now, talking about supporting the Second Amendment, you guys know that we've been talking, I want to say for a long time, about how, though there are those in positions of power, some of them politicians, some of them judges, some of them educators, who seem to believe that because you are a supporter of the Second Amendment, that all of your other constitutional rights, all of your other rights then become suspect. In other words, you aren't allowed due process, you aren't allowed free speech, you aren't allowed private property rights. All of these things become suspect. And I know some of you out there were saying, Craig, what's with the black helicopter talk? Although I do know some of you do believe in the black helicopters. But you know it's real. And we've brought to you guys instances of where this is happening. And that's what we're here to do again today. I want to talk to you about a young man in the state of Texas, a law student, whose ability to simply go to school has been put in jeopardy because he's a supporter of the Second Amendment. So with that, I want to welcome to the show Mr. Brandon Masin. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you.
So, all right. Just real quick, well, I don't know about real quick, because I had a chance to read the press release and the synopsis of what went down on Open Carry Texas's Facebook page. Why don't you go ahead and share in your words exactly what happened and where things are right now there in the state of Texas?
All right. Well, to give you a real quick version, essentially, I got back on the 20th. Suspended from my law school. My notice of that was an email, and it really broadly just said that because of an alleged threat, I am my presence on the campus presents a threat to the safety of the university and everyone there. So that was basically my send-off for Thanksgiving break, and it only gave me an email saying I need to meet with a care team. So I emailed the address provided, and I had a bunch of procedural questions about what was going on, because that was pretty much summarily decided. The response I got ignored all the questions, besides just telling me essentially show up on the following Wednesday at 9 a.m. at the main campus building, which I did. Because of the way everything was being carried out, I was secretly recording everything on my phone just in case. And come Wednesday morning, the school chief of police as well as the university's counselor were the two members of they call it the care team, questioning me. And really vaguely they were asking, did I ever issue any threat against the school? Did I ever... or any professor that was in the school, or a professor. Naturally, I said no. And then from there, it really diverged into my activities at the school, my views, my outlooks, the fact that I concealed carry, how many weapons do I own, how long have I owned, why do I feel the need to carry a firearm, do I feel unsafe at the school, do I ever open carry, in school, have I ever broken the law in regards to carrying a firearm. it was all questioning along that line. And immediately after that, that was the end of their discussion with me whatsoever. And then in came the university's Title IX investigator, who was not too much more helpful. And she's the actual official who's essentially playing prosecutor and judge here. And on our end, it was just questions regarding really vaguely read me two phrases. They say anything about holding up the law school, and assuming I said that, did I mention that I would target a specific professor, our contracts professor? I said no, asked a bunch of questions about the process, because under our code I'm supposed to have a notice. I'm supposed to know exactly who the complainant is, what the evidence the school's lobbying against me is, exactly when this supposedly happened. None of that was on the table. She said she wasn't allowed to tell me any of that, besides broadly saying those two phrases and saying that it was the Friday before, so the 16th. And as far as the time frame on that day, later in the day was as specific as it got. So that was all I had to go off of. So I show her these GroupMe messages showing that, as of a little bit after noon that day, I was playing basketball with other law students, and then I left town to go visit my family. Also showed her GPS, and I got all the students who were with me at the game to email her by that afternoon, verifying all of that. And then the next day, so this will be last Thursday, I get a message or a correspondence from her via email saying that she found me responsible for what was alleged and suggested a suspension until next year, psychological evaluation, an anger management program, creating a 10 to 15 minute PowerPoint on who was harmed by my actions, why they were wrong, and how I'll do better moving forward. And then being on probation through next school year until the end of that school year. So naturally I appealed, and that's basically where things stand right now.
So to be clear, it sounds like I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself through your speakers. All right, but it sounds like what's going on here was you offered evidence as to why you were not where they said you were when they said what you allegedly said, and yet for some reason she just didn't believe you.
Yeah. So there's a section in her decision where she cites basically the evidence she relied upon. It's literally 4 sentences. The first sentence says that she received an allegation, and then the other 3, it basically describes my reaction to being read to it, the fact that I denied it, and the fact that I called the statements hyperbolic. She also says that I claimed my recollection of the day was fuzzy. Realistically, I said that specifically me walking from the law school's lobby to across the street to a restaurant, I was fuzzy on who all was with the group I was walking with. And, thank God I was recording for that one. And she also misstates a couple key dates as far as our communication with each other. And then goes right that to a sentence that says, based on a preponderance of the evidence, find you responsible, and then down to those sanctions that I mentioned.
So my question then is the preponderance of what evidence? Because it sounds like you're the only one who provided any evidence.
Right. Essentially, the only way to realistically reach our conclusion is if you basically shift the burden onto me to disprove it and then say, I'm not convinced, which is basically what you did.
Wow. Now, I am neither a lawyer nor am I a law student. But you're the law student. That sounds to me like guilty till proven innocent. Am I missing something here?
No, that's exactly what it is. She tried to couch it in some sort of way that makes it seem like a rational conclusion, but realistically, that's what it was. And for me, the fact that she didn't even she didn't bring up the fact that I offered other evidence or that she was emailed directly by 6 independent people. So to me, the only reason you wouldn't bring that up is if you know you can't disprove it, since that kind of serves to undermine her desired conclusion.
So going back to the conversation, the first conversation that you had with the care team, how much time did they spend questioning you about being a firearms owner and concealed carry?
I'd say about 5 minutes.
Okay. How long was the overall meeting?
The overall meeting was about maybe 20, just under that, I would say. And it was basically being thrown back and forth between that counselor and the chief of police.
Okay. Did they tell you what the accusation was in that meeting?
No, they just said a threat against the school. I said I would need more specifics. They said they weren't allowed to, and they didn't know that much because they're not part of the disciplinary process, as they put it. They're just a mental health unit. So they only got the broad strokes.
Okay. So right now you're in a position where you're currently suspended from school. You're not allowed to go back. When you say next year, do you mean like 2019 or not till the fall of the next year?
Fall of next year.
Fall of next year. So you're basically not going to be allowed to finish your finals now. And then you're not going to be able to finish this year. And you're not going to be able to be back in school until next year. So basically, this is your first year of law school?
Yeah.
Okay. So your first year of law school is pretty much then going to be a wash.
Yeah. Basically, I got to pay the school to not have grades.
Okay. So right now, I know that Open Carry Texas is doing a lot to try and help get the word out about your situation and what's going on, and they're having people contact the university in order to have you reinstated. What are some of the other things that are going on in order to try and help you get back into school?
Right now, the biggest thing that I would say is the organization FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. Ever since they first were, carefully not responding to the concerns I brought up in the emails before the meeting, I emailed FIRE. Part of me being president of the Federal Society at the law school, one of their attorneys, I was already emailing him to invite him to speak for us next semester. I lined him up for February. So I was kind of familiar with the organization. So I went ahead and every time I got something from the school, I forwarded it to a contact at FIRE. He would email me back some questions. After that hearing and that finding, they asked me for the recording that I had made, and I sent them that along with the actual documents of the appeal I filed. And right now they're drafting a letter that they're going to release to the school in regards to the legality of this entire situation and what's been going on. And this is unless the school does a total 180, this is headed to court. So that'll actually be the biggest aid at all, because that's a totally third-party organization just citing all the legal deficiencies. And then on the media side, I've gotten a lot of support, people reaching out to me here, whether that be through Open Carry Texas. Infowars has asked me to the War Room. A producer for Dana Lash asked me to speak on NRA TV on Monday, which I accepted. And someone from the Dallas Morning News has also told me they'll be calling me sometime this evening. So there's been a lot of attention on that front. And I didn't even actually know about the phone calls to the school until I happened across a Facebook post mentioning it. So it's a way bigger splash than I expected.
Well, like I said, I can tell you for us, we see the Second Amendment. We see stuff like this. First of all, we don't just see the Second Amendment we don't see it as a hunting thing. We see it as a fundamental constitutional right. It's a civil right, just like all of the other rights that are listed in the Bill of Rights and in our Constitution. And I think that a lot of activists, like Open Carry Texas, they see it the same exact way. And when they see that not only that not only are they impeding upon your right to keep and bear arms, but now they're saying because you believe in the Second Amendment, now we're going to take away your other rights. What you've talked to me here is, number one, no due process. Absolutely, positively, no due process. The fact that you had 2 meetings does not constitute due process when they have a policy and a procedures that they're supposed to follow, and clearly they didn't.
Right.
And then on top of it, it sounds like you're being singled out simply because of your views on those particular issues. And I don't know I don't know exactly that that's the case, but I'm finding it hard to believe that it's not.
Yeah. As is, I don't see any realistic way anyone can deny that there's at least some bias at play, at the very least on the part of this investigator. That's just flatly what the objective evidence bears out. She's plainly trying to reach a conclusion, clearly one that she desires to be the conclusion. And beyond that, I just don't see any way to try to justify it. The only thing I'm up in the air about is, for one, why the originating statement, accusation, whatever was made, and then why it's being looked at and handled in this exact manner by the university's end. But again, all I can do is speculate from there, besides looking at objectively how they're treating it.
Right, and that's the thing is, in any case, you would think, if anywhere, you would think that where there's due process that's going to be kept, you'd think at a law school, that would be a place where they would actually make sure that your rights are in fact protected. But it doesn't sound like that was the case. That's been the case at all.
Ironically, it went way the other way, which is that actually I did not see coming. Just our law school is brand new and it's not even fully accredited yet. It's just provisionally accredited. So the entire mission of the law school is to be very open and diverse. And mainly they ideally want to keep things as cheap as possible to crank out lawyers to these underserved communities to open the doors of justice and all that. So that's basically what's been preached to us since day one. And every time they bring up the fact that we're the 3rd most diverse school in the country.
They may be talking about ethnic and cultural diversity, but they're not talking about ideological diversity. That seems to be a place where in education they're not interested in ideological diversity. One of the things about the Firearms Policy Coalition, I always say this: we're not a conservative organization. We're not. I'm a conservative. I'm a card-carrying member of the vast right-wing conspiracy. But we have everybody from liberals to conservatives to libertarians. We have Republicans, Democrats. We span the gamut. But everybody who's a part of this organization believes first and foremost that the Second Amendment is a constitutionally enumerated civil right and ought to be defended and protected. And you would think at a university they would actually value ideological diversity, because that then gives people the opportunity to hear a different perspective. But unfortunately, even in law school, that doesn't appear to be the case.
That's about accurate. Now, I will say a lot of the staff at the university were really helpful to me when I was starting the Federalist Society. Because as of the beginning of September, when student organizations started pitching to us, I didn't even know they existed. I just knew I didn't really like the other groups there because even beyond their views, which for the most part I disagree with, all of them really strongly subscribe to groupthink. You don't really object to what's going on at the meetings and at their events. It's just not done. So that's what made me want to branch out and find something else. And that led to me starting the Federalist Society chapter. And part of that, literally all we've done is pick a topic in advance, do some research on the legal side of it, presents factually that topic, and then debate. And out the gates, I wasn't trying to pull any punches. We talked about the Second Amendment. So that was our first debate. And then right after that, we went into Kavanaugh's nomination, which was fun. And then, we've touched on the lawsuit against Donald Trump of blocking people on Twitter, to the whether or not someone who's an American citizen found fighting against American soldiers should be given constitutional rights. We just try to span the gamut. And the thing that I always impose at the meetings is there is no federal society perspective. We just debate, and the best ideas rise to the top. But at this law school, that entire thinking is considered groundbreaking. And to date, we're the only club or organization. When organizations create the law school, they have to be voted into existence by the SBA, and we didn't get a unanimous vote, which was I think of it as an honor personally, but it really set us apart literally from the outset.
All right, so I gotta ask. Normally when it comes to being conservative or being Republican, I'm sure you've noticed that people of darker complexions don't generally tend to be of the conservative persuasion. Um, how did you become a conservative, if you don't mind me asking?
Um, it actually traces back to high school. I was in high school 2007 through 11, and right in my sophomore year, Barack Obama became this huge, just sweeping thing in our school. I didn't know anything about him, but I remember I was really offended at the idea that people were impressing upon me back then, that because he's black, I'm basically a race traitor unless I go along with it, and that pissed me off. So I just started investigating what the exact counter to what he was about was, out of spite. I realized a lot of it really aligns with my views. I grew up in a small-ish place in Texas. I've always been Christian in my entire upbringing. So naturally, a lot of things that are conservative also can correlate with the values that someone who's devoutly religious are going to have, just because they tend to align. And on top of that, I investigated, the other part of the platform, which at the time was 2008, the Democratic Party, and I didn't like a lot of to me, not too much of it was founded on logic that I could align myself with. And for the stuff that even I did agree with, I saw really a slippery slope with it, where there were some factual things I would have to really try to be ignorant of to pass it off as ultimately good. And seeing all of that, it became kind of easy for me. And then just over time, I've just gotten more in touch with what's going on politically, seen more, grown up more essentially, and seen more of how the world is working. And even as recently as about this time last year, um, I want to say it was last year, November. I was in Scotland, and I was stuck there waiting for. I was on a 3-day layover basically because of storms that couldn't bring me across the Atlantic. And the church shooting happened outside of San Antonio, and a lot of people at the hotel realized that I was a Texan. So naturally, that was a rarity for Scotland. So people wanted to debate me about gun control. And every time that I have to defend myself, defend my position, it ultimately just reinforces me and gives me like a hint to how other people view the world and me.
What I find interesting about that is you would think if anyone understood the dangers of an oppressive government, you would think the people of Scotland would have understood. I'm just saying, you think they would get why you need an individual right to keep and bear arms, because, well, we've both dealt with the same oppressive government.
Exactly. That was actually something I pointed out to them because before that happened, it was basically just rants about how they hate the English and their independence vote.
So here now, going back real quick, so that's how you kind of became conservative. It's kind of funny you say that because what your story sounds a lot like mine. In high school, I didn't pay attention to politics. In college, I was when I started to get politically involved, and I really found that as started listening to the parties, I realized that I disagreed with what what the Democratic Party stood for, even though all of my friends and all my family were all Democrats. And I found that I actually found myself agreeing with the Republicans. And in no small part because I was a finance major. And once you understand how finance and the economy works, unless you are just a purely heartless person, it's really hard to still be a Democrat. But it took me a while. At first, I was a believer in the Second Amendment, and it wasn't until I became a gun owner and then started to really wanted to understand my responsibilities as a gun owner did I really fully come to understand my rights and why the right to keep and bear arms was so important. What was your experience in terms of becoming a supporter of the Second Amendment, a gun owner, and eventually a person who concealed carried?
Well, for me, the first really in-depth interaction I ever had with guns was in the military. I graduated high school early to join the Marines. In hindsight, that's probably a regretful choice. I had a miserable time, and at best, I would say I was subpar at being a Marine. But one thing it really did for me, though, is I got educated in depth about firearms, and I worked with artillery, so I got to see the real extent of what weaponry can do. It fascinated me, and the big benefit, I think, especially compared to anyone who's never actually handled a weapon or owned one, is it demystified a lot of it for me. I can boil it down to metal and understand all of that. And then once I was back here and I decided I was going to pursue school, owning a firearm was always for me, it was something I'd basically just put off. It wasn't in the cards as far as a big priority for me until I'd say 2 years back. I saw a video of back in my hometown, somebody's outside camera over their garage showing a drive-by happening across the street. And it occurred to me that, the same thing could happen to me at the time I was living in Austin, and I'd have no recourse. I basically would just have to duck down somewhere and hope no one gets out of the car. And I didn't like the helpless feeling that evoked. So, I made it my mission to find what would be the gun for me. I started going around shows, getting people's advice. Found a pistol I loved, got myself a Ruger. And now I'm getting really into hunting, so I've been exploring getting a decent rifle. But that's still, I'm in an exploring phase there because that's a whole new world for me since I've only been exposed to rifles in the military. And now, as compared to back then, it's not even so much about self-defense immediately as much as it is about just pure principle grounds, I'd say. Like, it means a lot to me to have a firearm just because of the, deeper foundational reasons why our Constitution makes them legal. So for me, there's a lot of meaning into it. So even if I felt totally safe in the entirety of my life, I would still want one just for the sake of that. As much as I like the man, if Donald Trump comes in tomorrow and says the Constitution is hereby suspended and we're under martial law, I want some recourse there.
I like the way you think, young man. I most definitely do. So, once again, I know the folks are really pushing for you to make phone calls to the university to get them to reinstate you. Is there anything else that you would recommend folks do in order to be able to support you?
Honestly, as is, that's the only thing that's going on right now. It's looking more and more like litigation is going to be necessary. So as is, the only help that I've asked for is just to get some attention to it, to find some help. And then if it does move to that step, unfortunately, as a student, I'll be forced to basically start crowdfunding my own legal defense. But I don't want to jump the gun with that and have anybody go out of their way in that way for me before I know it's absolutely necessary. So I just say keep up the attention and contact the appropriate parties and all of that.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you. Just know that there are a lot of folks out here that are rooting for you and praying for you, and doing what we can in order to help make sure that that your rights are supported, and that you're given the ability to. Because I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to seeing you as an attorney, hopefully a civil rights attorney on behalf of the Second Amendment.
That'll be fun for me.
All right, sir. Well, thank you so very much, everybody. That's Brandon Masin. Everybody. Okay, let's see where we at here. Go back to. I gotta get back to that and that. I love being both in front of and behind the camera at the same time. It is a lot of fun. Anyway, folks, well, that is going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in and, having a good time with us. Please remember to like and share this program. Tell your friends. Tell your friends about it. Now, we're pre-recording this on Friday afternoon, because I want to make sure to get Brandon on. But please encourage folks. If you haven't already done so, encourage them to make the phone calls and encourage them to like and share this video so that people will know, once again, to make those phone calls. Once again, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Craig DeLuz, and I am your host for Coffee with Craig, and we are the Firearms Policy Coalition because, as I always like to say, this is a fight for our civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.